Today I thought I would just make a quick video talking about why, if you're thinking about starting a carnivore diet, you might want to start slowly. Hi there, my name is Sue. Welcome to my channel. If you've not been here before, I've been eating a carnivore diet for a little bit over 2 years. And when I started on the carnivore diet, I just dove straight in. I went from eating all the plants one day to animal products the next. And a lot of people do it that way, and that's fine. But knowing what I know now, if I was to go back in time and be starting the carnivore diet again, I would probably go a bit slower. And there's a couple of reasons for that. So I did what a lot of people do, and I basically jumped from my existing diet straight into a carnivore diet. Now, I had been eating a very highly plant-based diet for years. I was vegetarian for over a decade, and I was vegan for a couple of years, and then in and out of a vegan diet even for the prior probably 15 years to going carnivore. So my diet consisted of lots and lots of plants, and I was always kind of into, all the superfoods and all those sorts of things. So, lots of spinach and cacao and almonds and chia seed and hemp seeds and all of those things. And so what I didn't realise when I was eating all that stuff was that I was actually filling my body up with oxalate, especially because I had really bad gut health. So when I started on my carnivore diet, I had a lot of oxalate dumping. Now, if you don't know what oxalate is, I'll briefly explain here, but I've got some other videos on my channel talking about oxalate dumping, what it is in more detail. And you can also, I would suggest anybody who's wanting to know about oxalate and oxalate dumping, I'd suggest that they go and buy Sally Norton's book. I'll put a link to her book below. It's a really great resource if you want to understand what oxalate is and the impacts that it has on your body and the effects that oxalate dumping can have. But suffice it to say, if you have been on a very highly plant-based diet, if you have been vegan or vegetarian in the past, if you have had gut health issues in the past, then you are quite likely to have a lot of oxalate stored in your body. But even those people who have been on standard kind of diets, the standard American diet or whatever, tend to have a lot of oxalate potentially stored in their body as well, because a lot of the really common foods that people eat, like potatoes, so even people that are living on, hamburgers and fries, they're getting oxalate into their body. And if their gut health isn't good, then it's going to be being stored. Now, our bodies also make some oxalate as well, and that can be part of the problem as well, just depending on how your body's functioning. My thought is that most people, a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people have issues with oxalate dumping when they go onto carnivore. And sometimes it can happen straight away. Often it happens, fairly quickly. So sometimes it can happen straight away. Sometimes it might be a couple of months down the road, but for some people it can actually be, a couple of years or 3 or 4 years even down the road, apparently, according to Sally Norton. But for most people, it kind of comes on reasonably soon after starting on a carnivore diet. So oxalate is one of the main reasons that I would suggest going slowly. And so if you have been, as I said, eating a highly plant-based diet, then it may pay you to learn about oxalate and gradually reduce the oxalate in your diet as you transition into carnivore. So the reason for that is that when the oxalate that's stored in our body is stored away because the stuff is toxic, and too much of it in our bloodstream will kill us. And so what our body does, if it can't get rid of it, it'll store it in different tissues. And it can be stored anywhere. It can causes joint pain and inflammation and muscle pain and tendon pain because it can be stored in all those tissues. It can cause neurological issues because it can be stored, in the brain and anywhere in the body, anywhere that your body decides to store it. So if you jump straight into carnivore and take all of the oxalate out of your diet, because there's no oxalate in your bloodstream, what happens is your body, once it kind of realizes, there's no oxalate coming in, it starts pulling the oxalate that's been stored out of the tissues and into the bloodstream to get rid of it. And so that can cause a fair bit of misery. For me, I already had gut issues and I had IBS diarrhea and prior to carnivore, and so the diarrhea actually continued for well over a year, about 18 months or so into carnivore, but bad for about a year. And I've also, had lots of, nowadays I get pain and muscle pain and that, but things are gradually getting better. But the problem with the oxalate, being pulled out of the tissues and into the bloodstream is if there's a lot of it can cause problems. So it can cause electrolyte issues is one of the biggies, because oxalate binds to magnesium and it binds to calcium, and it makes them unavailable. So if that's happening, it can affect your heart. Palpitations and arrhythmias and things like that are fairly common, and so electrolytes can help. And if you're prone to, like kidney stones, you could end up with kidney stones, because a lot of kidney stones are calcium oxalate. And so those people who are prone to kidney stones, that can happen. There could potentially be, kidney damage, and just, depending on what's all going on. So if you are jumping in and you're having oxalate issues, then making sure that you're getting some electrolytes really, really can help, and help to kind of manage all of that. But there are other ways to manage it as well. And one of the best ways to manage it is to keep some oxalate in your diet, so there's still some in your bloodstream, so your body's not pulling as much out of the tissues. So that can be one of the reasons to go slow. So, as I said, if you learn about oxalate and what foods are the highest in oxalate, so the really high oxalate foods, some of them are spinach and almonds, cashews, peanuts, chia seeds, hemp seed, raspberries, buckwheat is quite high, beetroot is quite high, silver beet or chard is really high. What else? There are so many, sweet potato. Potatoes are reasonably high. There are so many really common foods that are high in oxalate. And so if you learn what those foods are, and then just gradually start reducing those in your diet, find the highest oxalate foods that you're currently eating, and just drop that one out of your diet, and drop another one out of your diet, drop another one out of your diet. So you're gradually reducing the amount of oxalate coming into your body, and then that allows your body to start potentially pulling some oxalate out of the tissues, but not in massive amounts and not causing you any misery. And if you do that for a while, and then just kind of gradually transition onto carnivore, so as you're removing those plant foods, just gradually increase the amount of animal foods that you're eating, and then hopefully you can potentially get away without too many issues with oxalate dumping, fingers crossed, but it just depends on how much is in your body. The other reason that I would suggest that people transition a bit more slowly onto carnivore is with regards to cravings and just allowing your body time to adjust. So it's really common when people start on carnivore for them to get diarrhea, anything from a few days up to a month or so. If it goes on longer than that, there's usually something else going on. I had that experience where I had diarrhea for over a year, and that was because my gut health was just really bad. But for a lot of people, it's just that transition. It's your body getting used to the change in diet to more fat. It's your microbiome changing, and perhaps potentially die off in the microbiome because you've stopped eating those carbs. Now, if you were to go slower and just gradually reduce those carbs and kind of increase the animal foods, then that's going to make it potentially an easier transition, and it'll also make it easier with regards to cravings. And you're kind of going to go through basically withdrawal, because those foods are addictive, and your microbiome is the microbiome in your body is going to be used to having all of that sugar and all of those carbs, and if you cut them out straight away, your microbiome is going to be screaming for those. So it depends on your mental fortitude and whether you can say no to that or not. And so for a lot of people, I see people all the time in the carnivore community who start on carnivore and they last for a little bit and then they end up falling off the wagon. And that's because the carbs haven't really gone, they're not fat adapted, and they are just kind of white knuckling it, just kind of hanging in there, trying to stay on the carnivore diet while the cravings for these other foods are kind of screaming in the background. And so if that's the case, if that's you and you are eating a standard diet with lots of sugar and all that sort of thing, what I would suggest is that you gradually slow down on that stuff and then move on to a keto diet. So if you go onto a ketogenic diet, do your learning, do your research, find out what you need to do a keto diet, and go onto the keto diet first, because then that gives you the chance to get off of those other foods, the carbs and stuff, and get fat adapted while still having more variety in your diet. The keto diet allows you more freedom with what you can eat, and so if you go there first and then gradually transition into a carnivore diet, that can really work well for some people, because it allows you to get, as I said, to get fat adapted before you start on carnivore. Because one of the things as well is that adaptation that your body goes through from being a carb burner to being a fat burner can be quite a big deal and can take quite a long time for some of us. I mean, for me, it took a long time to actually get fat adapted, and my body goes smoothly, in and out of ketosis now without any issue, and it's not a problem. But it took me quite a long time, and once you are fat adapted, that makes a big difference as to how you feel when you're not eating, how you function day to day, and your energy levels and all that sort of thing, with exercise and everything like that. So kind of making a plan depending on where you're at and how fast you want to get there. I mean, you might be like me and just be an all or nothing kind of person and just want to jump in and do it and suffer the consequences. And a lot of people do that, and they're fine. As I said, a lot of people fall off the wagon, but they get back on again. I see people all the time. They're on and off, on and off, on and off. Eventually, they stay on. But if you can just kind of go a bit slower and stay there, then that's probably a better option potentially with less suffering, because when you've been on carnivore for a little bit and then you fall off the wagon and eat other stuff, you're going to feel like crap. And if you go slowly, then, as I said, you can potentially reduce the amount of oxalate dumping and cravings and all that sort of thing. So so as I was saying, making a plan can really help. And so if you get your foods that you need, stock up on those, get your meat in the freezer, get some canned fish, whatever sorts of animal food you like to eat. Make sure that you've got plenty of those in the house. Get rid of the foods that you don't want to eat out of the house. And if you've got family and you're the only one that's going on to carnivore and the other ones are not, then if there's foods that are going to tempt you, speak to your family and tell them how important it is to you and that you don't want these foods in the house. And so hopefully they understand, and then that's not going to tempt you. And so kind of make a plan and set yourself up for success before you actually start. And then that way, hopefully, you can transition to carnivore, have a reasonably smooth journey, as smooth as you can do, and stay there and reap all the benefits that the carnivore diet has to provide. So that's my advice for anyone who's kind of thinking about starting on the carnivore diet. If you've got any comments or questions, just pop those below and I'll get to those as soon as I can. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and like and share and hit the notification bell and all that sort of stuff. I thank you very much for watching this video, and I will talk to you again another day. Goodbye for now.